before, and then we got hit with the China virus, and that certainly you had to go back, and I think we've done an incredible job with respect to that, other than public relations, because, and I'm not sure that it's possible to convince you of it, because, you know, you people were not really convincible no matter what we did, but we've done an incredible job, not only in handling it. Don't forget, we were expecting, and people were projecting 2.2 million people. We closed up the greatest economy in the history of the world for any country, not just for our country. And we are now opening it up. We saved more than 2 million lives and did an incredible job with therapies and therapeutics and with, I think, maybe cures, because frankly, some of the stuff is so good. But I think the ruling on Pennsylvania was an unfortunate one by the Supreme Court, because I think we should know what happens on the night. Let people put their ballots in earlier. But you have to have numbers. You can't have these things delayed for many days and maybe weeks. You can't do that. The whole world is waiting. This country is waiting, but the whole world is waiting. And a lot of shenanigans, a lot of bad things happen with ballots when you say, oh, let's devote days and days, and all of a sudden the ballot count changes. And you take a look at Philadelphia, the history of Philadelphia politics. No, I don't put people on their honor code. I don't think it's right, and I think it's a very dangerous thing that they've done with that decision. And maybe their wisdom will change that decision, or maybe we'll go back and give them a right to change it. But that's it's a very dangerous decision for this country, what they did with Pennsylvania, and some others also. You have to have a date, and the date happens to be November 3rd, and we should be entitled to know who won on November 3rd. And if somebody comes along and puts a ballot in way late, they shouldn't be. They should put the ballot in earlier. There's no reason why they can't put the ballot in 2 weeks earlier or 1 week earlier. I think it's a very dangerous decision for our country. In many ways dangerous, in many ways. You know, I've said with regard to African American, the black community, I've done more than any other president with the exception of Abraham Lincoln. And sometimes I say with the possible exception of Abraham Lincoln, but let's give him a lot of credit, right? But I've done more than any other president in the history of this country for African American, the black community, and they understand it. Criminal justice reform, prison reform, historically.
An acceptance speech, concession speech?
No, I'm not thinking about concession speech or acceptance speech yet. Hopefully we'll be only doing one of those two, and you know, winning is easy, losing is never easy. Not for me, it's not. But I think we have, when you see rallies, the likes of which in the history of this country, probably in the history of the world, nobody's ever seen before, there's a tremendous love going on in this country, and there's really a tremendous, but you deal with people that are very deceptive, but they'll go, Mr. President, tell me, who's the country that's most difficult to deal with? Is it Russia? Is it China? Is it North Korea? Sir, is it North Korea? And I go, no, well, by far, the most difficult country to deal with is the U.S. It's not even close. And they all say, you got to be kidding. And I say, no, I'm actually probably not kidding. No, we have very, very deceptive people. We have some people that, you know, I think they're sick in some ways, like an Adam Schiff. I think Adam Schiff is a sick person.
You said on the stump before, right, Mr. President, I know you've said on the stump before, I wouldn't have gotten into this job or ran for this job if the previous administration wasn't, in your words, so bad. And some have said that Barack Obama's come out to be the bad cop, to go after you. One of the things he said last night was he's going around spreading COVID like he's a carrier because he cares more about having these big crowds than he does keeping people safe. Do you want to respond to the former president?
Well, fortunately, he's drawing flies. He's not getting anybody to go listen to him too much. Actually, Fox puts him on more than anybody else, which is sort of shocking to me, because Fox has changed a lot. And somebody said, what's the biggest difference between this and 4 years ago? And I say, Fox. It's much different. You still have great people.
But
you're three of them.
But you know, Mr. President, can I just say one thing? What they try to do with Fox,
in terms of
but we just want to show both. unlike the other networks, they were trying to show both sides. So, hey, here's President Trump live, here's Joe Biden live. Because we feel it's a responsibility to sell.
We report, they decide.
Yeah, right. So I don't think it's an endorsement of anybody. But go ahead. When President Obama speaks, does he get under your skin? They say
in the old days,
he's the reason.
They wouldn't put Sleepy Joe Biden on every time he opened his mouth. They had other networks for that, frankly. And it was run, it's a much different operation. I'm just telling you, it's much different. And, and you have great people when you have Sean and you have Laura and yourselves, and you have some incredible people. I'm just saying, Tucker's been great. I think you really have incredible people, but it's much different. I can name some of your side players, and you'll interview. You had a period of time. I think you're still doing it, but you had Democrats on more than you had Republicans, and look, it's different. I'm not complaining. I'm just telling people it's one of the.
When they say that they love you, and when they say they love you, I like how you say, well, I love you too, because when you love someone, that's always nice to hear back. But what has it been like? Have you loved the job, or has it been worth it because you've been under so much attack?
Well, it's been mean. It's been, you've dealt with horrible people like Shifty Schiff and Crazy Nancy and Crying Chuck Schumer. You deal with some horrible people. Washing machines and televisions out of stores. It's a shame to watch it. I watched what happened in Philadelphia. I looked at that, and you see the cops stand by. And, they're good cops. The Philadelphia cops are good cops. They don't want to stand back, but they're told to stand back. And these kids and wise guys and anarchists, agitators, looters, and rioters, I mean, that's what they are. When they see weakness, they go for it. It's a shame. No reason for it. When the statues were being affected so badly, when they were knocking down statues, I took an old law. Basically, I modernized a very powerful old law. And you get 10 years in jail if you knock down a statue. And since that time, and now this is on a federal basis, cities could do the same thing. We could reinstitute it for cities if asked. But since that time, it just stopped. I mean, it just totally stopped. Because people would say, 10 years is just too much. And they would be able to stop this so easily by being tough, frankly, by not allowing
we hope it doesn't happen.
thugs to run around and break windows. I think it's very sad when stores are boarded up. I understand why they do it, because a piece of glass is very expensive, and plywood doesn't cost much. They probably have it from years ago, from past problems. But shots, and if he does, he's not going to be there very long. He's got a vice president who's further left than Bernie Sanders, who is not a particularly good person, and she would be, I think, a terrible first representative if she became the first woman president. I think it would be a terrible thing for our country. I think it would be a terrible thing for women. I look forward to the first woman president, but I wouldn't look forward to her being that person. I think it would be a very bad thing. And I think you'd have a country that would become a socialist country. If they packed the courts, that would be a terrible thing. And terrible thing. And yet the Supremes. But it's a very sad, to me, it's a very sad thing.
Mr. President, I want to bring something up, and I believe this is going to be our last question. I don't think we have, I think we're being told this is the last question.
You've got to go.
Yeah.
So, Mr. President, the analysis of what they're talking about and some of the things you've said, they are suggesting that you may declare victory if the early numbers favor you. At what point will you declare victory?
When there's victory, if there's victory, I think we'll have victory. I think the polls are, suppression polls, and I think we'll have victory, but only when there's victory. I mean, there's no reason to play games. And I think we'll have victory. I think I look at it as being a very, a very solid chance at winning here. I don't know what the chances are. I don't know how they rate the chances, but I think we have a very solid chance of winning